So let's talk about the Warriors and their situation, which has been going on. Today, I want to talk about the Warriors and especially what has been going on in their franchise. As recently we got more news from the Draymond and Jordan Poole situation. But really, all this started in 2020. What happened in 2020 was that the Warriors had gone through some of their worst seasons ever. Steph was injured, Clay had been injured, and Draymond, even though he's good, let's face it, he isn't really enough on offense to carry your team. So this team was trash, and they got the second overall pick. No, the first overall pick, and because they were the worst team in the league, right? They got that pick, and basically what they did with it was draft a generational, prospect in James Wiseman. And people thought that James Wiseman was going to be great, but in retrospect, he wasn't. But as soon as that started all the worst problems. All the worst problems don't really come from the players, even though they do have a lot of drama. Most of the worst problems come from money, financials, and the team just not being able to afford everybody. Like, you have Steph, you have Clay, you have Draymond, you have Jordan Poole, and now you have Chris Paul, right? And those are all contracts which you either were responsible for or are responsible for. And even though, yes, they're not on top of Jordan Poole anymore, the reason why really Jordan Poole got kicked from the team wasn't as much because of Draymond, right? It was more because it was going to be way too expensive for the Warriors to ever keep Jordan Poole and then, to let him go for, even though Chris Paul does have a big contract, his contract is smaller. You know, Chris Paul's contract is 1 year, 30 million. So, what we saw from that and what we are seeing now is that we can see that these people, right, are now playing together, right? And the problem is that even though Draymond and Jordan Poole are not playing together anymore, they're still beefing. And that's really one of the big things I wanted to talk about, right? I wanted to talk about how Draymond and Jordan Poole had spoke, right? And on social media about the situation. The only thing that Jordan Poole was chilling, and Draymond released like two different podcasts. One was his podcast, the other one was a Pat Beverly podcast. And basically Draymond was looking for problems with everybody. And in my opinion, I didn't like that. In his podcast, he said that when Jordan Poole spoke to him, he said things that men shouldn't say, right? And then Jordan Poole's dad said, "Yo, I'm up here for smoke if you want it. Like, basically, come at me. You never said sorry to me or Jordan Poole's mother. And I think that you are, I think that you're a weak man," is basically what Jordan Poole's dad said. But even though we did see that unfold, we also have to remember that Jordan Poole got traded because of Draymond. Like, yes, his contract was big, but Draymond was really the reason. Like, Draymond just was the nail in the coffin. But, so then, after all of this, Jordan Poole was the only one who hadn't responded. And he responded basically saying, yo, he posted this song by Gunna where it said, talk of the topic, find you a hobby. Basically saying yo, I'm the one who's everyone's talking about right now. And he's saying to Draymond, yo, go find you a hobby. And I think that's a very, subtle response by Jordan Poole. But I don't like what Draymond is doing. Like, why bring up this situation? I'm sorry, but when people start at the end of their career taking really. People at the end of Draymond's career talk about all the beefs and all the bad that he caused Golden State, it's gonna be a lot. Like, we've seen Chris Paul, Jordan Poole, Kevin Durant, and now Jonathan Kuminga get affected by all these media tours that Draymond does and by his extremely strong personality. And it's true to be said that without Draymond, you don't win any of those championships. And I'm sorry about that, but offense does not win championships. But it also has to be said that Draymond needs to control himself, or at least contribute to the team in a positive sense when it comes to keeping players. Because if you guys don't know, recently on the Pat Beverly podcast, he said that, like, yo, I don't like Chris Paul. And even though, yes, he's a professional, and I'm a professional, I don't like that dude, right? And I'm standing on that. And I'm sorry, but if a dude gets traded to your team and you're gonna play with him next season, it would be good to at least say that you like him, or at least that you guys have been cool. Like, I understand not lying to yourself, but you could hash that out privately. I don't need to know that you don't like Jordan Poole, right? And we all know what KD did to Draymond back in the day, where we saw it that KD left because Draymond told him, like, yo, we didn't need you, you needed us. And honestly, in my opinion, even though yes, that is the reality of it, like, the Warriors have never needed to win a ring, and they've proven that twice now. It's true that you shouldn't be dissing your teammates. The last one which we saw, which is the last one I'm going to talk about, is recently, very recently, that Draymond said that he and Jonathan Kuminga don't speak, right? And, like, what? Like, why? I mean, I imagine Jonathan Kuminga was more buddy-buddy with Poole. He probably doesn't like Draymond. But, like, you guys are a team. Jonathan Kuminga is your best young prospect and the dude who you're putting money in to be better next season. And now, the biggest vet on your team. And I'm sorry, but Draymond is the one with the most power. Like, yes, Steph is the one who gives the final call, but Draymond is really the guy who you could see out there with the guys, like, teaching them stuff in game. And now you're saying that guy just doesn't and isn't going to speak with the youngest and most valuable prospect you guys have. In my opinion, that's wrong. And there should be a change. Like, Draymond Green is a generational player. Like, and I'm sorry, but it's true. Maybe he's just in a system that benefits him. But when you've provided 4 rings for your team, and when you have this incredible defense, incredible game sense, incredible passing, and you can actually score when you need to and when it's clutch moments, I'm sorry, but that's insane. Like, you were great. Maybe you're not a generational player, but you're a generational asset. Like, in Draymond in 2016 had one of the highest trade values, right, for a player who doesn't primarily do offense that we've seen ever, right? Like him, Ben Wallace, Gary Payton. We're putting him in a conversation with the greatest of all time, Dikembe Mutombo. These are guys who primarily focus on defense, and then they had an offensive game apart from that. And in my opinion, the fact that we can put Draymond, the peak Draymond, in that conversation, and the fact that he's won 4 championships on top of that, being the most successful one out of all of them, that shows that Draymond is an asset to keep. But when he keeps up this continued pattern of talking horribly, of dissing his teammates, it's just hard to keep a guy like that on your team. So in my opinion, Draymond has got to clean himself up. For Steph, for Clay, for the franchise, and for himself and his longevity in the NBA. Like, yeah, he might retire after this contract, but let's face it, if he doesn't retire, he's probably never getting another bag from Golden State or anybody.